can you just say who you are and where did you study art or anything?
Yeah, my name's Huw Marshall. I'm a Scotsman who's lived in West Penwith in the western end of Cornwall for 25 years. I lived and worked here all that time. I have been painting pretty solidly for 15, 18 years. I'm untrained, virtually untrained, and I like painting big rather than small. I'm not good at small, and generally I paint with a lot of human figures or figures anyway.
And how do you go about making your work?
It's all out of my head usually, in that if I do any research and look at images or have images in my head, I then put them away mentally, physically and mentally, and then I just go on with it. And I tend just to start. Sometimes I'm not very sure where things are, what I'm going to do, and certainly not where they're going to end up. But I figure that the whole process is part of it. It's just the way my mind works. So it will follow a journey of its own as I paint. And because I paint big, I mean my usual size is 12 feet wide by 5 feet high, and mainly figures, then there's a lot of scope then. So I can experiment, and if things don't work I can just change it. I tend to use acrylics because I'm far too impatient to paint in oils. I can't cope with the drying times, and acrylic suits me because of that, because it dries a lot quicker. So,
would you categorise your art in any way?
No. I'm no use at abstraction and non-representational things. I'm more figurative, I suppose, and figurative in both senses, in that I tend to paint figures. And the best discipline for that is life drawing, but I haven't been able to do any of that for the last few years. So I used to be a doctor. I was a GP for 30 years, and so my knowledge of the human anatomy is fairly pretty good. So that's a definite advantage. Only recently I've started clothing my figures, because I could do the body, I could paint the bodies, people's bodies fairly well without clothes on, and I found clothes more difficult. But recently I've started doing a lot more work with clothed subjects.
Why did you stop being a doctor then? You changed to being an artist?
I retired at the age of 62, so I just went full time, painting all the time. So
you painted before then?
I painted when I was still practicing, and I painted on and off over the decades.
Right.
But with being busy at work professionally and raising small children and larger children, suddenly there's no time for much. But I've kept it going.
Yeah.
But only as the children got older and as I finished work could I really concentrate on it.
Is it a compulsion, or is it therapeutic?
Well, it's definitely therapeutic. I've had an interesting life with all sorts of good and bad in it, and I always always say it, painting keeps me sane, and since I paint what's in my head, I paint what I'm thinking about and what's in my mind at the time. And so if you look at my paintings, you'd wonder what was going on in there. But I figured if it's on the canvas, then it's a lot easier on my mind.
Do you want people to understand your pictures?
Not particularly. It's really mainly for me and the way I can manage to get my thoughts out. And there's a story behind everything, and some I'm not that happy to talk about, but most of my paintings I'm quite happy to try and explain where they've come from, although some I'm not really very sure about. Some are just, I don't quite know where they've come from, or they're from things from long ago, but they're possibly more interesting then.
All right. Are the titles important?
They are, but not really to me, and often I produce things and when I started painting big, I used to have a title in my head, or there's a phrase that I'm thinking about, and I work out how I can represent that. The one, despite what I'm painting at the moment, the one that's in my head really at the moment is the distance between two people when one of them is dead, which is an awful sentiment. But I will paint that somehow at some point when I feel able to do it. Often the titles will come after the event, and when you don't really know what you're going to be painting, then the title will have to wait until at least until the painting's finished, and then sometimes after that when I think, what was this all about? So yes, but sometimes they're not a clue really to what's going on. Sometimes they are.
Do you feel understood and appreciated?
I don't think I feel understood, but if I take the time with someone like now, and I'm talking about my paintings, which I don't often do, then I find that really interesting. Of course, I'm an artist and I love talking about myself. But I find I can explain things that I hadn't really thought about before, and the origins of what I've painted. And that is just really, I find really interesting. And there usually is a pretty good origin story for most of them.
Is there anything you'd like to happen that would further your work as an artist?
As in, if I get an enormous grant for painting, or I don't think anything would. I mean, if this interview hits the national press and then I become an international sensation, I think that would hinder me more than anything else. Not that, I mean, I really, no disparaging Mary, but I don't think this is going to be a huge event. But I think, that I just paint, and I paint for myself, really. I don't often have an exhibition, and if if I do, it's usually forced on me in one way or another. I don't sell very much because most things I paint are far too big for people to want to have in their, or able to have in their houses, in their own homes. So, and sometimes there's always a bittersweet aspect to it. There's nothing, they're always unsettling images in some way or another. And even if I start to paint a happy image, it tends to just turn ever so slightly. And so they're not really the sort of paintings people want to have in their walls, and I do appreciate that. But that's, again, if I paint from the heart, that's what comes out.
Do you have favourite artists?
I like Peter Howson, who's a Glaswegian artist who paints big, bouncy, muscular figures. He was the UK war artist for the Bosnian War, the Bosnian crisis, and I like him. I like the classics like Bruegel, Hieronymus Bosch, where there's a degree of weirdness and a lot of human activity. So, yeah, and you know, I quite like the classics. From Gainsborough to Rubens especially, and Rembrandt, of course, and some of the war artists of the First World War as well. So it's kind of people painting.
Oh yeah.
Unposed people painting, really. So I guess Van Gogh's always in there, isn't he? So, yeah.
What are you working on now or next?
Well, now or next, I'm at the moment I'm painting on as usual a large scale thing, which is all in black and white. In fact, Payne's grey and white, that started as a sort of Last Supper.
Shall I show it?
Yeah, if you want, yeah.
Go on.
And I couldn't restrict myself to the 13 people that were around the table at the Last Supper, and it's turned into more of a last orders at the Bells Hill Bowling Club annual social event, with a bit of brawling, fighting, arguing, getting off with each other going on. So all life before you there.
Yeah.
But I mean that's taken me a few days. I don't hang about, and I've learned how to use 6 and 4 inch brushes. So it's very broad brush strokes usually, and alternating with a tiny brush for detail. So there's not much detail in it though. So,
which of your works do you think is the most important to you and the most successful?
A work that was exhibited in Redwing recently, which is called Angels, which is basically 3 panels with 3 images of interlocking angels who are strong but show some signs of upset or distress, and limited palette with pale Prussian blue, white and a pale yellow ochre, and they're maybe tumbling, they're maybe in the sea, and it's a nice painting, but it's not completely unsettling, not calm. It could be slightly unsettling, and it's not completely calm, but it looks welcoming and pleasing, despite the subject matter being I find very painful to me. So it is an enormous place in my heart. But if I put that up on the wall, there's a certain wow factor, then I really realise that people really appreciate it for what it is.
Does it mean you believe in angels?
Oh, I've always got an angel. I tend to have angels quite a lot in my paintings. I'm not sure I believe in them, but it's such a nice thought that there's a protective angel looking over your shoulder and making sure you're okay. And yeah, so I probably do believe in angels, although I don't believe in any God at all. I'm far too much of a scientist for that, so that's a bit paradoxical. But maybe it's just the way I feel guarded, looked after. There's something out there that are up there that's looking out for me.
Right.
Not religiously, definitely not religiously, but maybe a spirit of some description. So,
thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No. I feel that if I'm painting, it keeps me sane. And it keeps me busy, occupied, and it keeps me here. So it's
and your studio's at Redwing, do you like that?
Oh, Redwing's such a lovely place, and Redwing's definitely a safe place for me. And my studio in Redwing, which has got a concrete floor, it's got natural light but bars on the window, so it's a bit austere, but it's really a safe place for me, and I can hide if I want, I can socialise if I want. But Redwing's such a lovely, welcoming place, and they've got fantastic coffee.
All right, shall we stop there then?
That's fine.
Thank you very much.